Is it too late, James? Is it too late to thank Wilfried Nancy for his interest in the role, but the position has been filled? What a night for Martin O'Neill. What a night for Celtic. Talk me through it.
Just the weirdest season ever, innit? They were so stuffy on Saturday night, got the job done with a great goal, but you're thinking, turn out a performance like that and you're going to get a sore one tonight. But they were outstanding. The periods were fine, they were well on top, but thought overall, really controlled, mature performance. It shows you this team does have talent, just needs corral.
Yeah, I think it was a mature performance. That's the right word, and it was a performance full of character, because going away from home, more or less to any side, you're going to come under pressure at different times. And I thought to go a goal down, and what was that, 11 minutes, intimidating home crowd, albeit minus one of their stands, and that's on them. I thought the team showed great resilience, and actually the team were a reflection of their manager's character.
I think that's exactly it. You could tell what O'Neill's put into them is self-belief. He's telling them, I believe in you. I believe you can control this game, win this game, score goals. They never panicked. There was that 15-minute period in the second half that was pretty tough, but there's always going to be periods you have to defend. So they kept to the task there, but you can see their belief levels are so much higher than they were.
So honest answers, where were you pre-match? I done the countdown to kick-off with Greg yesterday. I'll double check, I think he said 3-2 Celtic, so fair shout there. And I'm usually on the side of optimism, and I still had optimism, but I thought it could have ended up being a high-scoring draw. I went for 2 each on the night, because you just don't know what to expect from this Celtic side. So up and down they are, and Saturday night in Paisley's an example of that. Where were you at pre-match? What was your thoughts? Happy to put in a good performance? Confident of the win? What else?
I thought that fan for them would have been a factor. The noisiest fans and stuff. Take note ourselves. It can have an impact. I have to say, before the game, same as all the Europa League games this season, quite apathetic. Like, obviously, ready for it, hoping for a win. But, we're told these things are unbridgeable, after all. So, why bother? You're cheering them on, but not quite the same as this time last year in the Champions League and stuff. So the way that they behaved, Celtic PLC, has taken the fun out of it for me. But that's all changed. I'm back. We're qualifying. We're going to win it.
I mean, it just shows you everything going on behind the scenes is hugely important at Celtic, and it's important for the future of Celtic and what Celtic look like moving forward. But there absolutely is no doubt that winning games of football, it just lifts your spirits, because that's what we're all in it for. So you can set the two issues separately for just now and just enjoy the game for what it was. It was as I say, a performance full of character. We'll go through some of the individuals shortly, but more or less every man stepped up. The last hurrah for Martin O'Neill in Europe, there's nothing not to enjoy about that.
That was the big thing for me. I would have hated that to be even a draw. I'd have been really disappointed for Martin O'Neill. And then you go one down, you're like, oh, maybe it's not going to be, But for O'Neill to be talking the last couple of days, like, the deal's done and he's, ready to go back to the pipe and slippers. You just don't want him going out on anything but a win, and a fucking rollicking win. Everyone just going bananas. Pictures some of the boys over there having a great time.
Let me just check. So you'll have heard the stat. The last time Celtic won in the Netherlands was 24 years ago. Martin O'Neill at the helm. Were you there?
I was there. Yeah.
In the Amsterdam Arena?
Yeah, it was there.
Yeah, so 24 years on, he's doing it all over again. Amazing for Martin O'Neill. We'll revisit him later on in the piece. But yeah, in terms of the feelings amongst the fan base, or certainly the fans that we speak to and communicate with through, Celtic Exchange, through the Patreon and everything else, a fair bit of trepidation getting into it. Maybe a wee bit of heart rolling head at times. Other folks saying, as long as we put in a good performance, I don't mind coming up the road with a narrow defeat, that kind of stuff. And I understand that completely, because as we've discussed, that's just, where we are at this moment in time. But to go out there in the midst of what's going on and to get the win, absolutely phenomenal. You're right to mention the boys. So Paddy, our Paddy from the show, is out there with Stevie and Nicky. Stevie's away record up until this evening read 24 played, 1-0. Not one win on his travels. And as the song goes, this is the day Stevie gets to win, as does Paddy and Nicky. There's also Danny McGee's out there, Brian Bradley's out there, Jimmy Kerrigan, a couple of others I might have missed.
Stevie's out there. Don't know if
Stevie
Mickey's out.
Owens. So, brilliant for those boys and for all the boys that have travelled. 2,500 Celtic fans by all account. James, let's get to the match itself. And we'll start with the lineup, because I know you had concerns, particularly about the wingers. Listen, we're all experts after the fact, but a Martin O'Neill masterclass to go with a three of Maeda through the middle, because he absolutely hadn't been doing it on right wing. McKibben nudges up into that space, and Yang, the much maligned Yang, a guy that I've backed a lot, and I think his time at Celtic is generally up, but he and the rest of the boys, they absolutely stepped up there on the night.
You know, it was a weird selection, but Martin O'Neill's slightly better football manager than myself. I think what's going on is he's got Deegan's number. Bizarre. You know, what a goal, man. What a goal. But disappointingly, I think he's got Taneki's number. I think the defensive play that you need to be a winger at Celtic just isn't there. Yang's quite a physical lad, doesn't mind a tussle, and that looks like why he's picked him.
Yeah, and this might change when Wilfried Nancy comes in, and there's a suggestion he may be announced tomorrow, or they may wait till Monday, but he may play in a different way and may find somewhere else for Tanek to play, because I'm not going to dwell on this, but it's the slight negative, it's the slight concern on the night that I thought he came on and really struggled. I was disappointed to see Yang going off, because he was adding both elements to his game. He was a threat going forward, he was working hard, and he is a strong lad. He's small but powerful, and he was just digging deep and winning some defensive duels as well. I thought we lost that when he went off, and Taneke had a few moments where he could and should have shown far more strength, and maybe that's not where he would fit into the current system, and we'll need to see moving forward. But in terms of tonight and how Martin O'Neill set up, yes, he made that big change to his front line, and the other big call, and it was a massive call, and it's paid dividends, and it could be his coming of age game, was Colby Donovan at right back. Again, we'd done the pre-match, myself and Greg, and said, I think the chat was along the lines of, I hope he throws in Donovan, but I don't think he will. I think we'll go with Tony Ralston, and that'll be it. And Donovan, this is his first start since a really tough day for him at Tynecastle a number of weeks ago, and he's really stepped up to the mark. First and foremost as a defender, he's done his job defensively, but he plays a massive part in the third goal, and he can be really proud of his efforts as well.
Yeah, just some of his tackling was excellent as well. One in particular, he's about 28 on the guy. Guy's way favourite, and he manages to wrap her leg around, get the ball, get up, and then start an attack. That kind of thing. It's not that we haven't seen that from Tony, but great to see from Donovan. Great prospect. You need to take into consideration the context of Tynecastle. That's Rodgers' last game. Second loss in the bounce. Atmosphere within the squad was really low, or the feeling within the squad was low. So I think it's been good for him to have that bit of time out. But he's come on tonight just like he's ready to go.
Yeah, it'll look great, and the hope is that he can kick on from there. Whatever happens in his Celtic career and his future footballing career in general, he'll look back on a night like tonight at a time when he went out to a huge arena against a huge club, albeit a club having difficulty, and he stood up to the challenge and then some. As mentioned though, of course it's Feyenoord that take the lead. It's not long after a mazy run by our centre-half Austin Trusty, who I thought was good generally on the night and stepped up as well. But he's found himself very high up the park, and I don't think we've quite been streetwise enough to slow them down on the free kick. We just kind of seem to get caught on the hop. After a decent start in the game, we get caught on the hop. The long ball seems to find itself between Tierney and Scales. I thought we could do far better there. It then breaks to Ueda, Japanese international. He generally keeps Maeda out the side, and he tucks it away nicely, but it's frustrating, and you're thinking, here we go, same old Celtic away from home in Europe.
That's exactly what I phrased it as. So Trusty's a bit mad doing what he's doing, but he's thinking, well, my better option here is to keep going. My question is, why would there's no one shown for him? Your centre half is about 10-15 yards into the opposition half, and he's pretty much the most advanced player. I just can't work that one out. But I think it was the cow not closing down, so the ball comes right in when the Trusty's trying to get back in position. Tierney and Scales are a bit out of position. Tierney's slow, not denying that. And then the hands up, you see it back, and Miles onside. And then Scales is waiting for the whistle, waiting for the flag, just not on his toes. And then a nice finish for the lad, so can't take that away from him. But a very, very Celtic away in Europe goal.
Yeah, and you're hoping that it might have been offside, not the second ball, but the first ball through the middle. You're hoping, but when you see it back right away, no such concerns. It's a goal, and you're at that point, you're not facing a mountain, but you're facing a real uphill challenge. And all Celtic can do is exactly what Celtic done. They've just dug their way back into the game. They were having good spells before the goal. And actually, before we even get to Yang's goal, we had them on the ropes. We just got them. They're a vulnerable side just now, and despite taking the lead, they never kicked on in the way that they would have hoped to. Their fans would have been hoping that this was a turning point for them. They've lost their last 3 games before tonight. They're having a ropey old time, and Van Persie himself will be under pressure, and absolutely more so now. But Celtic dig deep, and it wasn't like we were just scrapping about and competing. We were playing some really decent football, and I think the first goal for Celtic, is a brilliant goal. Luke McCowan was making his first start in Europe for Celtic tonight, and I was saying to myself, I wonder, in fact, is that his first start in Europe at all? Of course it is, because he played at Dundee and he played at Ayr United, right? So massive night for Luke McCowan, and delighted for him, because he comes in there at a time when the team are up and down. He's not had any manager so far giving him the confidence to start him in Europe. Martin O'Neill sees something in him. And what a part he plays in the first goal. It's a really clever clipped ball into the channel where Rio Hatate makes a brilliant run, and Rio Hatate had a phenomenal first half of football, proper Rio Hatate stuff. And he then just lifts it into an area. He's not obviously picking anybody out, but he's put it into a really dangerous area at the back post. Your centre forward doesn't get it, but like every good winger genuinely should be doing, is coming crashing in at the back post. But there's still work to be done from Yang. And we've seen this quality in Yang. I know it's become a bit of a running joke because he's inconsistent and he has some really poor moments. This was a class moment. This is a moment that he won't forget in a Celtic shirt. And he smashed that into the back of the net, and the tails are up, and we're right back in it.
They think they get pressure that's on his shoulders there, that ball coming in. I thought Rio had lost it. I thought it was a great ball from McCowan. It's right in front of him, but he lets it bounce maybe once or twice. And then the ball's high, and he's got to kind of loft it, so you can't drill it into the Eisen. It's a bit of a put it in the area kind of thing. Eisen's not there. Yang is like a train running into it. So going at that pace, keeper's narrowing the angle quite nicely. Keeper's thinking, I've got a really good chance of getting this. And he's just cannoned it off completely. And then such a difficult finish, that needs a lot better. And quite a conservative celebration for me on bananas.
He's just a conservative kind of guy, isn't he? He's kind of easy-ozy, he kind of takes things in his stride, and he's had some decent moments in a Celtic shirt. He got the couple of goals against St Mirren last year, and in different flashes he's done pretty well. But that's as big a goal and a bigger contribution that he's had, because like Rio Hatate, it wasn't just about the goals they brought to the first half, it was their overall play. I thought both of those guys were real standouts during that first half, and as you say, it's such a difficult finish. It's coming out the sky, so first and foremost, keep your eye on it, make sure you get a good clean contact, and at that point, if you get on target, you need a bit of luck. The keeper's made himself fairly big, but he gets the luck. It hits the back of the net, and Celtic are right back in it. And what a lift for the travelling fans at that moment in time. But then what we've seen, and what you get in football, is that goals do change games, but not necessarily in your favour every time you score a goal, because then Feyenoord started to get back in, and it looked like Celtic could have then conceded. I think it's at this point that Schmeichel makes a really smart save. I thought he was pretty smart all night, Schmeichel. I thought he was good at his feet, good coming out and closing down. And then Celtic get the break that you often get when you work as hard as Dyson Maeda does. I don't think he had a great game by any stretch tonight, but you always get the work, and it's he that puts the pressure on the goalie. When it looks like they're pretty comfortable, keeper panics, and coolest man in the house at that point is Rio Hatate, who just strokes it in to an empty net, and you're in dreamland at that point, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's all the work from Dyson. He had a couple of things where he was sloppy in possession and stuff just before that, but he never stops to coange and push him to defender first and foremost, and then keeper thinking, I've got a bit of time here, and you do not have time when Dyson Maeda is there, getting the pressure right on him, and it is falling straight to Rio's feet, but there's no time for a touch. And see, being able to finish that, it's feelings like that is not an easy finish. That can go anywhere. And he just keeps his head over the ball, drills it. A beauty.
I've missed hundreds of those chances. Hundreds of them. I thought at that point, though, you'd have absolutely taken one each. Actually, I was thinking, let's just get to half-time at one each and we'll see where we go. But it changes everything, because it sends them in at half-time with a real negative air, a real negative energy from the home fans. the opposite applies to the 2,500 party time for 15 minutes for those lads and lassies. And Celtic can just regroup with the confidence that they're in control. You know, they've got this game by the scruff of the neck. What are you thinking at half time? How are you feeling? You holding out for a draw at that point, or are we all in for the win?
I think get my dinner. No, all in for the win. I thought just before half time we had a really interesting free kick if we could have made more of it, which we didn't. It fairly Rio and ballooned it. But if we'd have gone in at 3-1, I think it was done, you know. So no, I've sort of played them out. Control, they've got to come at you. So just be mature, be sensible, exploiting the spaces that they leave you. I think that's what they did, really.
Yeah, and I think they've got some talented individuals. I don't think you play for Feyenoord generally if you're not a good player, but there is no doubt their confidence was down. But you could see at times, I forget the names at this moment in time, and I don't really care about their names, but their right winger looked dangerous at times. He had a great couple of touches in the first half, bringing it down out the sky. He seemed to be a threat. Ueda, Japanese international that I mentioned, definitely a threat. A couple of good individuals, but they're clearly in a bad place as a team mentally. You know, they were fragile. They were there for the taking. And Celtic, who are also a bit fragile at this moment in time, have just, fully exploited that. I thought, and one thing I'm really pleased about is some of the streetwise actions that we took during the game. And I need to bring Arne Engels into the equation here. A lot of people are quick to criticise Arne Engels, but I think he does do quite a lot of good stuff unnoticed off the ball. I thought he just had a very good game generally. Ticked along, linked the play, made his tackles, dangerous deliveries from set pieces. But it was his yellow card, and I think it's maybe 2-1 it is 2-1 at the time. He picks up a really, I was going to say a smart yellow card, because it's Tunecki that gives the ball away, and too often Celtic kind of go to make the challenge and pull out it, or after you then we'll see what happens. Just take him out, right? He's bearing down, he's maybe 40 yards out, take him out, and Engels does take him out, and it was a wee bit naughty, and it went to a red card VAR check, and I was a wee bit concerned. But you've got to make those moves, and in Europe particularly, if not domestically as well. It's one thing playing good football, it's one thing scoring good goals. You need to deploy the dark arts at times if you want to really progress as a team. And I think Engels has got that. I think Rio Hatate's got a bit of that. I think Maeda's got it. I think Callum McGregor's got it. And it's good to know that when required, Celtic can go to that part of the game as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's too much of this, puritanical stuff as well. That's not our game. You do that, you away to Atletico Madrid, and you get absolute horse football. Was that game? That game was 5 or 6-0 or something. I can't remember.
It was only 3 when you left.
So everyone else is doing it, and I'm not saying diving and stuff. I'm not into that genuinely, but taking your smart yellows when they're there. What Eagles is also good at is taking these fouls when they're presented to him. There was actually one McGregor leapt over a guy out in the wing, and I'm like, just take your foul there, So Engels has got that in his locker, and it just slows the game down, frustrates them, buys us a bit more time, gets us reset, all that stuff. So no, it's part of the game, and I'm happy with it.
Yellow cards are part of the game. You don't want to encourage your guys to pick up reds, but taking a yellow tactically, strategically, is part of what can get you through nights like tonight. And there is an example fairly late in the game, maybe still 2-1 as well at the time, where Engels finds himself attacking for us maybe 35 yards out, and he gets hauled down, but when you see it in slow motion, he actually pulls their guy first, and then he pulls him, and Engels just takes the foul for what it is and finds himself in a good area. I was really pleased with him, and I hope he kicks on as well from this one. There's a few subs around that time, so Negren comes on for McCown in the 62nd minute, and I thought it was a smart move. I think Celtic and Martin O'Neill have realised that it just doesn't work with Dijsselmeyer out there. He's not comfortable for whatever reason. He doesn't take us forward in an attacking sense. He's just a very safe right winger.
But Donovan would have taken so much pressure tonight if he'd left Dyson there.
Yeah, maybe so. And I think McCown put in a real shift until he had to come off. And as I say, he can be really pleased with his night's work. I almost failed to mention the wee one that he clipped the bar, that it turns out he was onside.
On the line. He was on the line.
And do you know what? That's one of those ones that you can worry about if you draw or lose. You don't need to worry about it now, and we can have a laugh, because I'm sure they'll be taking the piss out of him up at Lennoxtown tomorrow about it. But yeah, it's Negren that comes on the right hand side. Not your favourite by any stretch, and a man who frustrates in different ways, but we'll get to him in a moment, because what an impact he done what Negren does basically. The other changes around those times, 71 minutes, you get Dane Murray coming on. and I was a wee bit concerned about it given where he'd been recently and at Tynecastle as well. But he comes on, Liam Scales goes out to left back and Tierney goes off. And as mentioned, Tunetke comes on for Yang. It's a substitution which could have cost us, actually, if I'm being honest. But
And Young was bust.
maybe so. Maybe so. But it all comes good in the end. Let's get to the goal, because I've mentioned Colby Donovan for the part he plays in it. You're kind of running the clock at that point. So, what time is it? It lands in the 82nd minute. You're getting into that stage in the game where it's nothing daft. And we're down their right-hand side. And he basically takes a throw in just to try and get them on the back foot. And it's their defender that heads it back to him. But he's then got a lot to do and a lot of bodies in front of him. And he somehow navigates his way to the byline. I think his cross is deflected, but it's Maeda doing Maeda stuff again. I've said this before. Maeda is far from the best technical footballer at Celtic and on the planet, but his endeavour and his reading of the game is good. So he gets in that position ahead of the goalie and he's sharp enough to knock it back. I don't know if you think Negren should have hit it first time.
Do you want me to tell you?
Talk me through it.
He was screaming at my telly had it first time, and the reason being they're starting to close in that area of the pitch, right? At that point, the goalie's right hand side is open to him. Just a wee chip, it's back in the net, and you're away, right? So just control it. Oof, there you are. That's the easier of the two. When they start to close in, the channel he's got is this, and he absolutely lashes it through that. I have a needle off the bar and in. What a finish, man.
Do you think he could have taken it first time, on his right foot or on his left? So I don't think it was sitting correctly for his left. That's my take on it. He just had to touch it to the side. He had to do what he done. And now, obviously, as I say, experts after the fact, we can't criticise. I thought it just wasn't quite right, but he's touched it to the side. There's bodies swarming around him, closing in. And watching on telly, you can't really see much. And I'm sure up in the stands, behind a perspex sheet as well, I think the away fans were. Hard to see there. And big shout to James McKinnon, actually. He smashed it in, and what a finish. But the biggest, the most pleasing thing about that goal was the team spirit. They're all over him. He makes his run to the bench. The subs are out. It wasn't quite Troy Parrott for Ireland, Kieran Tierney for Scotland, but it wasn't a million miles away. And again, it just shows where this team are at. They know it's a bit messy off the park. They know there's stuff going on. They know we're in a state of flux. Martin O'Neill will move on in due course. Wilfried Nancy will come in. But as I say, it's the Martin O'Neill spirit which makes those players react in the way they did. And that group's about to change in the coming days. But for the right here, right now, they were all in together.
Yeah, but, for a transition period into a new manager, what a great job. Because if Nancy comes in 4 weeks ago and has to pick them up off the canvas and then look at the season ahead and so on and so on, O'Neill just gets them really, really focused on, and it is cliche, but it's game at a time. Was he won 5 out of 6? We lost to Midtjylland, isn't it? So just that short window, one game at a time, building their belief game after game. You'd mentioned that maybe post-match or from Saturday that you worried that the new manager bounce had gone. It's back. It's going away again.
We've got a new bounce. I mean, Martin O'Neill has absolutely met the brief head on. They've come in and said, steady the ship. He's closed the gap at the top of the table. He's beaten Rangers on his way to a League Cup final. He struggled against Midtjylland, but he's clawed those 3 points back away to Feyenoord. Listen, he's absolutely done his job, and he can enjoy semi-retirement or whatever Martin O'Neill decides to do after this. But I read a comment on Twitter just before coming on here, and I can't remember who it was from, maybe the Tim's account, but it was somebody saying, I'm so delighted that this new generation get to experience, even just for a small part, the Martin O'Neill effect at Celtic, because it's something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was always the thing, when he came in first time around, and we needed someone just like Martin O'Neill, just that, sports mentality masterclass, and not from the books, from the pitch, the Clough type stuff that is out of fashion. Still effective if you can make players believe in themselves, and that's what he does. He has players running through brick walls, and you're getting the benefit of it.
Yeah, and there's people naturally now saying we need to find a place for him, or can he be some part of the team? I don't think so. I had the chat with Graham Spears a couple of weeks ago. Graham Spears is very close to Martin O'Neill these days, and he says Martin O'Neill won't want to be a bit part of anything. He's either the main man or not at all, and I think he will be quite happy. I've got the impression from his last few interviews that he will be quite happy to step back and listen, what a boost this brings. This makes it all the easier to step back and let the new man take in. And listen, if he goes for a couple of coffees with Wilfried Nancy and tells him the lie of the land, that'll be hugely helpful to everybody. But I think Martinelli will move on, and maybe there's a space for the Sean Maloney's and Mark Fotheringham, Steve McManus,
so.
etc. in the backroom team. But we'll see the shake-up of that moving forward. Just to quickly catch it as well, Tony Ralston comes on, Paulo Bernardo comes on. I thought Bernardo had some important moments. I almost forgot to mention Callum McGregor's headed clearance on the line. Massive moment, I think, 2-1 at the time. Everybody's stepped up. The group have stepped up. Kasper Schmeichel, he was absolutely delighted at the end. I thought he played a big part. I've probably missed a couple, but I thought as a group, subs included, everyone stepped up to play their part on what's been a massive night for Celtic. And in terms of the Europa League now in the standings, all of a sudden it's a far rosier picture. You were getting into that one tonight with 4 points of a possible 12. You're now on 7 points. Generally speaking, experience of last year tells us that 10 points just about gets you through. So we've now got 3 games, and they're tough games, don't get me wrong, Roma next, but 3 games to potentially find yourself moving forward in the competition. It's a challenge, but it's a welcome challenge for Wilfried Nancy and the group moving forward.
Yeah, this is it. Now you get to the business end. So I've said consistently through the season, not that enthused by it all, scunnered. Didn't think with the squad depth, and I don't think we have the squad depth. I think that's been proven. Even periods of the subs been on, you're going, that's a downgrade. It's a bit of a gap. But now we are where we are. 1 win from those 3 games, should take you there. 4 points almost definitely. 5, surely. So if you look at just going to beat Utrecht at home, you're there now. It would be just very Celtic to leave it to that game. But I'd rather have done it against Roma, went and get a point away against Bologna, and then go and win against Utrecht and enjoy it. But it won't be that way.
Yeah, so, I mean, a couple of tough games. 2 Serie A sides, Roma at home on the 11th of December, then Bologna away on the 21st of January, and Utrecht at home on the 29th of January. And yeah, so the table last year, I looked at it quite recently. 10 points was enough to get some teams through. There are other teams who also finished on 10 that dropped out on goal difference. So 10 is, you wouldn't want to be floating about 10 for too long. You want to maybe get a win and another one, actually. A couple of wins would be good. But regardless how we do it, and obviously there's a bit of a gap there, as I say, between the Roma game and the Bologna game. But if Celtic at home against Roma, and who knows how we're going to shake up, it's not far away, that game. It'll be a new management team in, who knows, but they should take confidence into that game from what they've done today. And actually, the group in general, James, now has to take confidence. We're in this crazy spell of, after tonight now, I'll need to get my head around it, but I think it's now 9 games between now and the turn of the year, 9 games between now and 30th of December, but nothing breeds confidence like wins. Performances are good, wins are better, and if you can do both at the same time, like they've done tonight, it leaves you in a great place. James, we're heading for the closing moments of this one, but your final thoughts on a big night for Celtic, a 3-1 win in Feyenoord, or in Rotterdam against Feyenoord.
Yeah, just very Alan McNally there. Just delighted, especially for everyone that's travelled out there. You and I have made those journeys many, many times. And after the game, after a draw or defeat, you're just a bit like, you need to G yourself up. I will not be required tonight.
Yeah, spirits will be high, and as I say, there's a whole bundle of lads out there, but massive shout out again to Paddy and the boys who are there, and to Stevie celebrating his first away win in 25 games. Thanks to everyone for sticking with us and waiting around for the post-match show, the final whistle show. As I say, it's a big night for Celtic, a big night for all, and it should kickstart the next run of games, whether it's Martin O'Neill on Sunday, followed by Wilfried Nancy. Thanks to James for tuning in. Thanks to everyone for sticking with us. We'll be back. When will we be back? We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, with a pre-match ahead of Celtic Hibs at Easter Road on Sunday. But until then, enjoy your Thursday. Enjoy Europa League Thursdays. We'll see you all again really soon.